All righty, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the Red, White, Claret, and Blue Show with your host, Alex. And while he may be from the Newcastle of America, he is here as a Villa fan today. It is Christopher Condit, your American villain voices. And as always, the lukewarmiest of lukewarm opinions. Chris, I hope you know enough about Newcastle to get that joke.
I did get that joke. Yes, that was why I was laughing. But given that the bug that you gave yourself there, I don't know that we're lukewarmiest of lukewarm takes now. If you're already selling out your countrymen after a bad showing yesterday.
I didn't say I was selling him out. I'm not sure if I'm.
You're
I'm
not sure you're
anymore.
president of the fan club anymore.
Yes. Listen, I will always stand by my countryman. There is always a place for him here in my warm Colombian heart. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough to be president of the fan club as of yesterday, and I want to make sure that we keep getting viewers. So we can't go too far. Speaking of viewers, as everyone can see, we are back on StreamYard here for good.
Back where we were meant to be.
Back where we were meant to be. We're really excited about this. It's going to help us get out to even more platforms faster with better quality video. So thank you, StreamYard. Everybody, please go follow on not only Spotify, Amazon, and Apple, but also check us out on YouTube now. We've got full videos. We've got shorts. We're posting short little content snippets to all those aforementioned social channels, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. So all the red, white, claret, and blue content that you need is now out for you to be found. Chris, we are now, 2 days past Christmas. We are on to our second night of Hanukkah. How are you? How's the family? Did you get all the gifts that you wanted?
I got more than I wanted because I don't ask for much, except the one gift that I always want that I never get is peace and quiet. So someday that will come. But yes, everything was great. The family had a great Christmas. We had a lot of good food. My parents are now on their way and will arrive shortly after we finish this podcast. So hopefully by the time I'm done editing, we will have my parents, my wife's in-laws here. So that'll be an extension of Christmas for my children. And they are very excited for that because there's still presents under the tree and they keep asking when they're allowed to open those. So yeah, but a very good Christmas. Everybody was happy with all the stuff they got. And my kids have still way too many toys. And, it's only going to get worse from here in terms of that. So how about you? How was Christmas / Hanukkah in Maine?
Oh, it was great. It was cold. Had a nice day in front of the fire, watching some movies, hanging out, making some food. Got back on the hill yesterday for some snowboarding. You see one of my gifts right here, which goes very nicely with my Aston Villa t-shirt here. There's a nice little claret red combo. Not going to say who it was because we are a no free ads podcast, but if anyone from a heretofore unnamed British streetwear company sees this and wants to send us some more, we are happy to plug you and wear your fashion every single episode if we need to. So thank you for this. It's very cozy. I very much enjoy it. But yeah, and now we've got, 7 more days of Hanukkah. We're headed to my parents tomorrow for the night, and then we'll be back in North Carolina for the rest through New Year.
Nice.
But I can't say that I got everything that I wanted, Chris. There was one gift that I haven't gotten, and that is a Villa victory on Boxing Day. So I think we need to dive right into that with our match recap. Look at this branding. This is incredible. So, Chris, Villa tactical setup and approach. And honestly, before we get into that, I want to just list a couple of stats that come out of this. We lost. So I've kind of incorporated that all.
We lost badly.
These numbers.
Lost
badly. Eddie Howe has now won 8 of his last 9 matches against Aston Villa, no matter what team he's been with. Villa have now lost 5 straight EPL matches for the first time since 2016.
5 straight away. 5 straight away.
5 straight away. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. 5 straight away matches for the first time since 2016. Continued our streak of not winning at Newcastle in, I believe, 19 tries, now 20. Who knows how many years
administration, I think.
Well, it goes back over 20 years because
Yeah,
obviously they've spent time in the championship. We've spent
yeah,
time in the championship. I'm going to get the year wrong, but apparently the last time Villa won at St. James Park was the infamous in-team fighting
yeah,
match.
yep,
Well, the mid 90s, I think. So mid late 90s. So a lot going against us here. I think if we're going to remain lukewarm on what was another bad loss on Tyneside, we have to acknowledge the fact that we don't win there. No
yeah.
matter no matter what team we've had, no matter how great we've been under Emery, I mean, all the way back to Martin O'Neill, we simply do not win there. So let's pour a little bit of cold water on some of the loss, but you know, yet another losing record that Emery seems to be breaking in recent years, at least.
Yep.
So balance everything out a little bit. When the lineups came out, as you and I predicted, no change from the City match. Do you think that was the right call?
I do. I mean, I still think it was the right call because it was your best 11, in my opinion. Now, that changed very quickly when they scored in like 92 seconds. But when I saw the lineup, I was happy because I know that Man City isn't. They're not even close to as good as Newcastle right now in terms of in form and all that sort of stuff.
I
I'm
mean, they're
not
the
talking
worst
about.
team in the league,
I
literally.
mean, yeah, they are. Like they're the worst team in the league since November 1st. They're Man City, that is, right? So they're nowhere near Newcastle, right? And but I still thought that was the best 11 that you could bring out there, especially since outside of the goal that the team gave up against City, it was a pretty solid performance throughout, and probably should have been more goals for Aston Villa against Man City than they scored. So I was happy about it, and I still like the idea of starting Jhon Duran. I thought everything pointed to at least a competitive, if not a winning match, at least a competitive match, but I was very wrong. What did you think when you saw the lineup? I mean, we talked about it in the preview.
Yeah, I'm not going to Monday morning quarterback it. I think that was the right lineup. It worked well against City. It should have given us the personnel to counteract what Newcastle wanted to do, and we'll talk a little bit about how Newcastle counteracted how we wanted to neutralize them. But yeah, I had no qualms with it. I thought it was the right call, and yet there we were, 32 seconds in, and Anthony Gordon is smashing home the opener against a double teamed and confused Matty Cash. So I have some theories on what they did, and I think they did this a few different times. But you tell me what you saw on that opener.
So the first thing I saw was that Onana gave up the ball in a terrible way, where he was he trying to put it over his own head and over his defender's head, or was he just trying to go over his defender's head? I can't remember, but it was a terrible turnover that Newcastle did a nice job to spring immediately into the counter and go down their left channel. And then from from where Gordon picks up the ball near sort of the corner of the box, Matty Cash is in a tough spot there. So because the instant reaction is Cash needs to step up and close out. But there's also, I forget who was trailing behind, that Cash was picking up, and he pointed saying, that's who I've got. I think that Cash was expecting Kamara to come down and fold in, essentially to stop Gordon from shooting. Instead, neither happened, and Cash got caught between two worlds, and Gordon had all the space in the world to shoot. Now, let's not take away from the fact that it was a great finish, because it was. But he's very good. Like he's a very good shooter and a very good finisher, Anthony Gordon. So it's not surprising you can't give him that sort of space to shoot. And then from there, like the only thing I'll say about then the game going forward is, when you can see that early and that quickly, everything kind of goes out the window, because now you're up against it in a way that you are not accustomed to in any situation. But so I thought the instantaneous, my reaction initially was to blame Cash, but then on replay, when I watched it again, I actually think that he was put in a tough spot and there was no winning that. I guess the only thing you could hope is that he closes out and Gordon still attempts the shot, but I think Gordon then slides the ball behind and we're giving up an even better chance. So, but what did you think?
Yeah, so I'm not sure how the ball got to Kamara. Maybe it was Onana flicking it over his head, but ultimately Kamara's the one who loses the ball
Yeah.
in that spot. He loses the ball, he gets turned, he tries the tactical foul and
Yeah.
can't even pull the guy down.
Yeah.
Him being caught out of position is ultimately what leads
Yeah.
to Matty Cash being isolated out
He
there with the
tracked back though.
overlapping fullback.
He tracked back.
Not quick enough. And
Yeah.
frankly, I think when you look at his positioning compared to Onana, he is far on the left side of the field. Now, Newcastle did what we thought they did. They can move Anthony Gordon to the left and the right wing, and they matched him up over Matty Cash. We did as we expected, which was put Kamara on that same side to kind of do the same thing that we did against Jack Grealish. The problem is, I think Kamara was not as disciplined today, and this first goal wasn't the only time that I noticed it happening, but he was caught way too far to the left, got sucked in on Guimaraes and Joel Linton as they kind of floated to the center. And so then as Newcastle was able to cycle possession out to Anthony Gordon, he wound up getting isolated one-on-one against Matt Cash, and that's too much distance for Kamara to cover. I don't need him jumping into that space as much. I need him to stay back. I think that's the problem with we've been kind of moving him back and forth between that holding role and then the Yuri Tielemans more advanced role. And so I think instinctually it's hard to, when you're switching not only every game, but potentially in the middle of every game, to have more freedom to move forward, to maybe press a little bit higher, to then needing to be the one to be more tactically disciplined and sit back. That's probably what we saw a little bit of today. He's got that instinct to kind of go forward because he's been doing that a little bit more recently, and then ultimately gets caught out of position defensively. And so, yeah, I agree with you. If Cash steps up on Gordon, he's slipping in the fullback. The fullback's getting it cut back to Isak, and that's probably a goal anyway. Like you leave him out there and hope that he puts it on a post and hope that he doesn't put it on a postage stamp, right, which unfortunately he did. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, we were playing a team that had back-to-back clean sheets already, right? Fairly good defensively at home. If they're going up 1-0 in the first minute, it's going to be a really, really difficult uphill climb. And you kind of saw that because for 15 minutes, Newcastle was able to dominate possession 71% by the end of the 15th. And we were really limited to kind of one opportunity. You saw Duran get a nice cross on the ground through the box that nobody's making the late run on. But that's kind of all I remember. And then Newcastle kind of said, all right, we'll sit back and we'll let you break us down. And that was the next kind of 15 minutes until the 30th when the red card happened. Before we get to that, what did you see from Villa? Because personally, I saw us move the ball around a lot without really being very incisive or creating much of anything.
So it's the same thing I think that we've been talking about for a few weeks now, where it's moving the ball, but without any sort of plan of attack in terms of how you're going to make a move into the defense to break them down. So the frustration there lies again with either a lack of incisiveness from the players or a lack of a plan of attack from the coaching staff, which either one is equally as frustrating. And I don't know which one is to blame for that. But I saw the same thing you did. And Newcastle, especially at home, especially given how poorly Aston Villa play at that ground, Newcastle would be happy to sit there and just let you kick the ball around the back for a little while without ever really threatening goal. And I think the most telling statistic is that the only shot on target was Luka Dean's free kick. That was the only shot on target all day. And I know that after the 30 whatever minute, we're playing with 10, but like we just didn't create enough. Even if we had 11 players on the pitch, we didn't create enough chances. That we were second best from the start against.
And I mean, for further evidence to that, you want to get the ball to your forwards. Even with 10 men, you'd think you'd play a couple long balls over the top and someone would get a shot or two. in 32 minutes of play, Jhon Duran had 11 touches, and then in the subsequent 56, I mean, I guess he only played for 40 something of them, but
Right.
by the 88th minute, Ollie Watkins only had 10 touches of the
Yeah.
ball. So we were
The
not
same thing
creating
we
there.
praised Villa about with Holland, right? Shutting down Holland,
Yeah,
Newcastle did to us, right? Yeah.
exactly. And another issue that I saw was as we got frustrated, Morgan Rogers started drifting more and more towards the center, started hunting the ball. He lost his tactical discipline. And the thing that we've been saying for a year now, when he plays on the left and he doesn't stick to his position, he really clogs up the middle. And you saw him and Yori really getting in each other's way a lot. And I think that is also what kind of limited our ability to create, because we lost that out ball on the left. We lost that ability to play between the lines to kind of hit that gap between their right back and center back, because he just wanted to get on the ball and try and dribble with it. Now, that becomes more useful after Duran goes out. I felt like he was the one person that was able to kind of get on it and drive us into the attacking third and ultimately make something happen.
Got
But
fouled a
when we're
lot.
11,
Yeah.
got fouled a lot. But when we were 11 on 11, like that really was to our detriment. Uh, I'll ultimately highlight him a little more in kind of my good points, because I do think he was good once we went down. He's got to be better and smarter when we're 11 on 11 and not stunt the attack that way.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I thought the same thing. I thought that Rogers, when we were down 10, played well, but I thought, when we had the 30 minutes of 11 men, again, it was just, again, a very clogged midfield, and we lost all sense of shape that we held so well and have held so well when we've played well. So that's, I think, the most frustrating thing is this is really sort of becoming a Jekyll and Hyde sort of thing. And it's almost breaking home and away almost. And I've got some
Home and
numbers to
away
bear
and
that
good
out.
opposition versus bad opposition.
That's also true, right? That's also true. Yep. Yep. But it's
But
just, the away thing needs to stop. And maybe we do just need to get some more favorable scheduling away as we turn this schedule over. But I think we've taken 9 points in total away, I think.
that's brutal.
So if the goal was to be mid-table, then fine, then that works, but that's not the goal.
Yeah. So 32nd minute, we can talk about this in general as a commentary on the refereeing, but we don't need to bury the lead anymore.
Yeah.
Red card or no red card? What do you think?
So ultimately, I think no, but all right, I'm gonna couch it. I can see why it was given, but I'm gonna have some thoughts on that as well. So I can see why it was given at speed, the way it happened. However, here's my main issue with it. What does Anthony Taylor first award when he blows his whistle there? Do you know? Did you see?
Was it just out throw?
Throw to Villa. Yeah. Yeah, he signals throw into Villa. And then the crowd goes crazy. Bruno and I forget who else.
Dubravka comes sprinting
Yeah,
out of the goal
like
at
just
Duran.
just surround him, and then he immediately goes for his back pocket. So like that to me is poor refereeing, because again, he initially signals throw to Villa. When the crowd goes nuts and the players go nuts, he changes his call and changes it to a straight red. That's crazy, man. Like that, you can't do that, right? You can't award throw to Villa and then change your call to red. I think,
So let me play devil's advocate on you there real quick. I don't know that this is what happened. Obviously, the
yeah,
camera is kind of going everywhere. It's following Jhon Duran. But let's say he sees the coming together, ball goes out, and all he kind of sees is Jhon Duran's left boot just kind of skid alongside.
mhm.
Walks up to Shar and sees this giant cleat mark essentially in his ass cheek and raking up his back.
Yeah,
And he says, "Oh, I clearly missed a stomp here. Red card."
yeah. I mean, that's possible. That's possible. But my my thought or hope would be in that spot that you communicate with your ARs and
Yeah.
potentially your VAR as well, right? Especially if what you said is true, right? Then
Yep.
you need the full picture before you pull a red card out. So I think, to me, it looks like Duran actually does try to avoid, and it's just an awkward situation.
Mhm.
Because when his boot goes down, he lifts it up. It's not like he stomps and stays. I I I don't think there was any intent there from Duran to do that. But again, I can see why you would watch that and say red card. I can understand that side of it. I thought it'd be soft for a red, especially given that it was, to me, unintentional. Um, but I think the larger problem is Anthony Taylor not utilizing his assistants and even his VAR to make sure they got that right, because now this is going to get appealed and hopefully rescinded on review, but I'm not sure. I
It's
think it
not.
will. What's that? You don't think so?
It's not. No, I don't think
I think it
they're.
will. I think it will. I
I
mean, there's virtually everybody outside of Newcastle fans say that shouldn't have been a red. Even Alan Shearer, Eddie Howe, everybody is saying that shouldn't be red. But so I think that's the toughest part is Anthony Taylor's very quick reactionary decision to pull a red card has cost Jhon Duran potentially 3 games. And that's brutal to do that sort of thing. It's continued inconsistency from the referees. I think is the biggest issue for me. We don't know what is or is not a red. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. There was a game 7 years ago, somebody brought it up, where Anthony Taylor against Fulham, where Anthony Taylor was the referee and a Villa player got stepped on. It was not a red card. So how can one be and one not? It's to me, it was more that he reacted to the players in the crowd than he actually saw it with his own 2 eyes. So that's the worst look for me for PGMOL. I don't think it was officiated well. I think that's definitely one where you need to talk to everybody and make sure that you've got it right. And if everybody else on the pitch says red card, then absolutely, right? Then you pull your card. But to do it that quickly as a reaction, it's a bad look.
I think that's all very fair and a very reasoned take. And my biggest thing yesterday was the lack of any sort of consistency in how cards were
Oh yeah,
applied.
I didn't even
You
get
look
to
at
that part,
the
right? Yeah,
you look at the 55th minute, perfect example. Matt Cash beats Anthony Gordon. Anthony Gordon literally just grabs him arm and yanks him back. This twice now that Villa have not benefited from an arm yank.
it was fleeting.
And he calls it, clearly stopping a break, clearly cynical. I mean,
A tactical foul,
that
right? A
seemed
tactical
to be
yellow.
the most, yes, it seemed to be the most tactical yellow card offense possible. Nothing. And this happened repeatedly, I think, throughout the game with some bad challenges, both against Villa and honestly, I don't have any written down here, but there were at least 1 or 2 from Villa as well that I thought could have also been yellows that didn't meet the bar, and then other ones that were. What I don't like from what I've seen in the aftermath of this is a couple different things. One, random screenshots that are freeze framing Fabian Schär's foot in sort
Oh
of
yeah, no,
Jhon Duran's
that
groin
no,
midsection area.
yeah.
Like
They're
they
falling, man.
were flopping, they're
Yeah,
falling. Like this isn't Ndamukong Suh kicking out at Aaron Rodgers, and you can't take one freeze frame and be
yeah,
like, oh, he kicked him in the groin,
right.
but that's not a red, but Jhon Duran's is. Like, stop it.
Yeah,
Okay, just stop it. It invalidates all our arguments when we try and say that the red card isn't deserved. In terms of it getting rescinded or overturned, what I'll only go back to is the Curtis Jones red card from last year, where he's kind of late. His foot winds up rolling over the ball, and I want to say it was a Spurs player. It might have been Arsenal, where he goes over the top, hits him in the leg pretty lightly. Red card, no intent. Just kind of clumsy, kind of same as Jhon Duran falling. He's just kind of reaching. That also was not overturned on appeal.
Yeah.
So I think that unless there is a clear evidence of misidentification given for a red and VAR screws up, but like Jhon Duran actually never stepped on him, this is just more speculation. And I think that PGMOL and the Premier League aren't going to want to get into speculating on speculation on a subjective call to then say that there was no intent and it's not a red card. And that's why I think the appeal is not going to be successful.
The only thing that Villa have that they can point to is the referee didn't even give it at first. He gave ball out to Villa. You know? I mean, like,
maybe.
That, so
we don't know who was in his ear from the VAR or the side official who said that they got a better view or something.
Right.
And then the other one, and not to pick on you, but to pull out an Anthony Taylor evidentiary situation from 7 years ago.
I didn't pull it out.
Like, are you saying that the dude can't, that first off, the rules haven't changed in 7 years and that he can't evolve over the course of 7 years to say, hey, maybe I made a mistake there and therefore, like, I'm going to call something different? Like, I'm just going to say these people are not programmed robots from the FIFA game. Like, I don't want that being pulled out. If you wanted to pull out something from Anthony Taylor like 2 weeks ago, I would say, okay, I at least want to hear like why he's changed his thinking in 2 weeks to say that one was a red where this one isn't. But like 7 years ago, I don't want to hear that either. Now,
I'm just being mad. I know that's all.
I know, but you are being mad jokingly in a way that the Villarati on Twitter are being mad genuinely, and true, I can't. Now, with the red card itself, I think I'm with you where I probably lean a little bit more towards when I saw the replay, particularly from behind, it looked like Duran swung his leg inwards when he would have kind of missed him and almost like kind of scissored around him. It looks like he swings his leg in, and then more importantly, he moves his foot instead of out to kind of miss him. He moves it more down to go down onto his back. That was my read of the situation. And so I thought that there was, now granted, I think this could all be explained by his left ankle is rolling. He's falling down on his ass. Like, I don't think any of us really know how our body would instinctually react to that situation. Exactly. But I don't think it's getting overturned, and I can see why it's called in the moment because it looks like he moves his leg to inflict more damage than it otherwise would have if he just fell down. And so that's why I can understand it being given. I don't know if it was intentional. And now we get into the red card issue of like, does intent matter or not? Curtis Jones, for example, does intent matter? Or is this just a coming together falling that happens to be vicious? And this is where you're very accurate. We're like, we need PGMOL and the EPL and the International Referees Federation, the FIA, to like come in and tell us, yes, intent matters or intent doesn't matter. And just if there's damage, it's going to be a red card.
Right. Well, and that's, I mean, the other question, I forget who was last year, last year toward the end of the season where it wasn't a Villa game, but a player, it might've been Bruno for United did like the double foot stomp to try and stop the ball.
Spurs, where he missed almost entirely.
Yeah. He just missed. Overturned. But like if intent matters, that's a red, right? Because the intent is to land on somebody's legs and break them, so like
very good point.
It's one or the other. It cannot be this nebulous situation that we're in.
And that one, really good point, actually, because that's a good foil to Curtis Jones. Curtis Jones, no intent, inflicts good damage. Bruno, intent, skims, and that's the one that gets overturned. So I think that's another point on why Duran's not going to get overturned because like he did make significant contact.
He did. There's no denying that. You're insane if you thought that. But I still just I would have rather have seen a discussion like from what we could see that on camera. Taylor reacts very quickly based on what is happening around him. Now, there could well be somebody in his ear. I'm willing to concede that. But I would have liked to have seen a longer discussion of red or not there. That's all.
I think that's fair. Yeah. All right. So moving on from this, For the next 30 minutes, we get Ollie on at the break, but really it doesn't matter. Until we made subs in the 68th minute, uncharacteristic mistakes by nearly everyone on the Villa team. Newcastle start to tee off. Yori gets caught in possession, leads to a great save by Emi Martinez. McGinn, multiple giveaways, 50th minute in our own box. He just plays it out to Newcastle. 61st, he has the turnover that leads to Isak's second goal, which is ultimately called out offsides by, again, a toenail. And then Emmy has the awful pass out that should be finished, but Murphy winds up hitting the bar on it in the scramble. I mean, some of the guys that we really think should be the most secure, the most experienced heads in this situation just seem to absolutely crumble under the pressure.
Yeah, I thought that even given that we were playing against 10 men, I thought that was one of our worst halves of the season. It was bad. It was unfortunate, and I can't think of a player outside of Morgan Rogers that played particularly well in the last 60 minutes of that game, or even longer than that, really, if you think about it. But I don't have a whole lot to add because it was just poor, and there wasn't a lot of good to take out of this game. Like, there's nothing that I can point to and say there's something that we executed well outside of Luka Dean's free kick that I already talked about. That was our only shot on goal. Like, that was the one thing we did. One free kick very well, forced a great save, and on another day is probably a goal, but that, like, if that's what we're hanging our hat on, then we're a relegation side, and that's not what I want to be, so I'm pretty disappointed in the way this one went. Yeah.
Now, what I will give us credit for is the fact that our subs did seem to make a difference.
There you go.
So 68th minute, we have Barkley come on for Kamara, who, as I said earlier, positionally was just very poor. Costa on for Matty Cash. Interesting to see him get 20 plus minutes, although that could have just been I don't want another red card, but
yeah, right.
Again, like Unai does have options. He could move Ezri Konsa to right back and bring in another center back. So the fact that he brings Costa in there, probably a good marker. And then Leon Bailey on for Morgan Rogers. The only qualm I had with this, and I hinted at this earlier, once we went down to 10 men and the field opened up a little bit, Morgan Rogers seemed to be the one out ball that we could play. I thought his dribbling was really strong, holding on to the ball, drawing fouls, allowing us to kind of move up the pitch and create some stuff. Whereas the aforementioned John McGinn, you'd think we'll keep our captain in there because he is going to be the most composed head, be able to play the ball around. I mean, he was misplacing passes left, right, and center. I thought he was awful. I'm surprised that we didn't keep Rogers running around out there and take McGinn off for Leon Bailey. But, what did you think as we brought those guys on?
Like I said, I thought Rogers was the lone bright spot. So taking him off, I think, is a mistake. But maybe at that point, Emery's flying the white flag and just trying to get out of here.
That's fair.
Which is possible. And
especially with a match in 3 days, that's exactly fair. Yeah, safe as legs.
I thought, like, if you're going to bring Costa in, I think that's a good time to do it because you're probably not getting anything from that game. I hate to sound so defeatist, but looking at it realistically, like, all right, kid, go out there and make some mistakes, and see how you can play against what is a really good attacking side, particularly at home. So I thought some of those changes made some sense. I would have kept Rogers out there, but then at the same time, like, I can only assume now with Duran absent and you're not going to have Cash in the next game, right? But Duran's gone for 3 games. There is going to be, I would expect, a heavy amount of leaning on Morgan Rogers to create until Ollie Watkins can get it rolling. So I think maybe it was a decision to put Rogers down for a little bit and save his legs.
Yeah, that's actually probably right. I'm also going to be cynical about the cost of substitution. There's a lot of smoke that he's going to be going out on loan in
Yeah,
January, and
in
so I do
January.
wonder
Yeah.
if there's some opportunities to give him a little bit of run to kind of put him in the shop window and maybe entice. I would love for him to get Premier League minutes as opposed to going to the Championship.
Mhm.
I think I saw
Mhm.
something this morning about Ipswich. So if you can get some
Oh, I'd
more
send him
Premier
there in
League
a
teams in
heartbeat.
the mix willing to give him some minutes, I think that would be really good. So
Yeah.
maybe that's in Unai's thinking as well. To your point, 2-0 down to 10 men. We're playing again in 3 days. Game over. Like, let's see if he can do something exciting.
Yep.
We did also, you said Morgan Rogers is the one bright spot. I want to give Luka Dean some credit as well, actually. So he had the one shot on target, and then 78th minute, didn't stop going forward. He got that cross that Pau Torres got his head to that ultimately just went over the bar. Frankly, I think Pau Torres needs to do better with that and at least put it on
Mhm.
frame. So I thought Luka Dean was decent. And then Esri Konsa as well had a couple last-ditch clearances, ultimately kind of marshaled the back line. Not really at fault for any of the goals, at least that I saw. The only last thing that I'll say is, again, just awful turnovers by guys that we want to trust. Onana on the third, again, just lazy, slow, and frankly, all of Newcastle's goals, I think, had some element of beauty to them, whether it was Gordon's shot. We never really talked about Isak's goal, but the way
Mhm.
they worked that through ball back to ultimately cross it, get it across the face of goal for him was fantastic. I
Yep.
mean,
And
they
he's always
looked,
finishing that, right?
and he's always finishing that. They looked really good yesterday. So
They are really
credit to
good.
them for playing.
They are
Yeah,
really good.
and credit to them for playing up to it. I mean, they certainly did not play down to their competition. So
Yeah. Yeah. We can't continue this way though. I'll tell you that. Can't do it.
no. So anything else from you on good points or bad points?
No good points, all bad points. Those are my points.
Okay. Um, yeah, I had the points. Consul Rogers and Dean as my good points. I do think that down to 10 men, we had more of a go than we have in years past.
It's fair.
You know, there have been Villa teams in the past where when we went down to 10, it was we're sitting back and we will just lose 1-0. We'll try and get a 0-0 draw, whatever. This team
Yeah.
at least tried to make something happen. They were not good
Yeah.
at it.
No.
But I suppose if we're going to be lukewarm, we do need to give ourselves credit for at least having a go.
Going for it.
That's all I'll
Yeah.
say.
Again, the problem is that, and I understand down 10, down to 10, I should say. It's good. You're going to struggle to create chances anyway. But there were just so few real chances in this game. Even when we had 11 guys on the pitch for the first 30 minutes, it never felt good for me. And it's tough to feel good when you score in 9 seconds, when you give up a
Yep.
goal in 9 seconds.
So, Chris, larger implication on the season. How are you feeling? We are down to 9th, potentially 10th if Brighton beat Brentford today. Obviously, still very, very close, very jumbled, kind of up until let's say 5th.
Yep.
What do you think?
I mean, so the result and the way they played was extreme. The way Villa played was extremely disappointing, and I think that the concern needs to be that we can't string together more than a few wins, or even like a win and a few draws, especially going away. We've just been so poor away that's a real concern for me. On the positive side, nobody outside of Liverpool are really taking this thing and running with it. And we're still in this situation where it's just a bunch of people all jumbled in an area between like 10th and 4th. Obviously we all had Nottingham Forest sitting 3rd at Christmas. Everybody did that, or at Boxing Day, I should say. You called it, I called it, every pundit in the world had it. But still the point differential is not so great. The issue is that if we want to get to where we want to be, which is European spots, right? I'd love to stay in Champions League, but European spots needs to be the realistic goal that you have. Somewhere Europa, Conference League, Champions League, somewhere in there. You can't be only picking up 1 point away on average. that is enough to, like, if this were, Christian Benteke's Aston Villa, and we were just trying to scrape by and finish above the relegation point, then that'd be great. That'd be fine, because that will likely get you there, 1 point away. But that's not where we want to be, and that's not where I want to be, and I know that's not where the club want to be, both from a competitive standpoint and a financial standpoint. So that we need to play better, more consistently, I think, is the biggest issue.
And let's do the math on that, because we've said this before, but it bears repeating. Like, Unai Emery's entire managerial career, he flirts closer to the 1 point away and 2 point at home kind of average. Problem is, if you total that up over a Premier League season, that's 57 points. And that's not where we ultimately need to be. So we're asking the team and Unai to do a little bit better than they have historically done away, because to your point, that's not going to cut it. 57 is not enough on a consistent basis to be where this team wants to be. And we can't assume that we're just going to win every match at home. Clearly, right. That's not the case. That's never going to happen. So where you can pick up more points is away. You can turn a loss into a draw. You can turn a draw into a win. And, you get that closer to 1.5. Now you're in the mid 60s. And now you're kind of cooking with gas, and you're able to kind of move things around a little bit. So we'll just need to keep that in mind as we go forward, to see if Unai can figure out his away woes. Bringing back something, the demanding of apologies. We kind of hinted at this earlier. We need an apology from Anthony Taylor and PGMOL for, once again, the just complete lack of clarity and inconsistency in how refereeing is nowadays. It's really sad that you and I can spend, and people that honestly spend even more time than you and I do following this sport, watching this league and watching this team, can't explain basic foul calls and why they are one thing or another, and why it's changing week to week. It just, figure it out, man.
I agree. I mean, and it's not just about the red card, like you said before, right? It's the arm pull on Cash. There was a shirt pull on Rodgers that was played advantage, but not given as a yellow, which that's the correct call at that point, to play advantage. But then you have to go back and adjudicate it, because I'm thought that anytime there's a clear shirt pull, that's an automatic yellow card, right? That was always my understanding. So again, like, I was good with the decision to play advantage, but then you go back and slap him with a card. So I guess the question, while we're demanding apologies, is Anthony Taylor afraid of being bonesawed in a hotel? Is that potentially entering the play here? You're not.
I don't know about Anthony Taylor, but I am. So if Newcastle ownership happens to be listening to this podcast, there is only one member of this who is insinuating that you might be bone sawing people in hotels, because as far as I'm aware, that has never happened before, and they are totally innocent of all charges. Moving on.
You knew I had to work one in.
Yeah, well, you're a braver man than I.
I am.
Moving on to cold water. So, Chris, we have one cold water here today that I'm curious your take on. And it's not really about, we're going back to our man Jhon Duran, and it's not about whether the red card was deserved or not. All right. But the red card happened. He's out for 3 matches. You saw as he left the field the way he kicked that water bottle, needed to be restrained a little bit. So, take is, Unai Emery ain't starting Jhon Duran again anytime soon for that petulance, both in the foul and afterwards. He showed his true colors, and he's not seeing the starting 11.
I mean, I pour cold water on it as a take, because of the true colors part. But I actually think that may be accurate in terms of how Emery handles it. I don't think that Duran is going to get back out there. My only counter to that is, I've always said, regardless of the sport, whether you're talking about soccer, football, basketball, baseball, whatever, I want talent, man. Give me guys who can play and we can figure the rest out. So Duran is that, right? Like, he's very good. And I just, I don't want to see him sit for long periods of time now, because of this, because he's very clearly right now our best goal scorer, and it's not close. But in terms of the take, like, or in terms of the way it's actually going to play out in real life, I think that's totally possible.
I think so. There's a delicate balance here that Unai needs to strike. And at least in terms of yesterday, with the red card, with the kicking, it's often been said that before Jhon Duran started scoring every game, it was like he's either going to come on and get a yellow card, get sent off, or score a goal. And it was one of those three options. And then score a goal ultimately took over. But
That was
there's
his first sending
certainly,
off in the Premier League, though, by the way.
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
All I mean to say is that there's a bit of Diego Costa about him, perhaps. Aware of the dark arts, certainly an emotional player, can score some wonder goals, but also might get some stupid cards from time to time. And it never stopped Diego Costa from being part of the starting 11, right? So what Emery does have to do is really make sure he gets his man management on this one right. I think that he will want to send a message to Jhon Duran that you can't get away with this, that you need to control your emotions a little bit more on the pitch. But he's not going to want to frustrate him to the point where we're dealing with the same saga that we were last year because Duran doesn't feel loved. As you and I have said, more than anything, Duran just wants to feel loved and valued.
Yep.
So I think you're right that even after the 3-game ban ends, I don't think that Jhon Duran walks right back into the starting 11. Unless we're in a situation where, like, we haven't scored a goal in 3 matches and we just need someone to put it in, because ultimately Unai Emery wants to win. And he's going to put the players out there that he feels like gives him the right opportunity to win. You saw that happen over the last week where Jhon Duran gets 3 starts and all of a sudden Ollie Watkins is banging down Unai's door asking for reassurances that he's going to have an opportunity to get back into the game. Well, Ollie, here's very soft. Ollie, here's your chance. Take advantage of it.
Yeah,
otherwise, in 4 or 5 games, I think we see Jhon Duran scoring again. So
yeah, I hope so. I mean, it will be a good opportunity for Watkins, I guess, if we want to kind of try and find a silver lining here. Like, Watkins comes in and starts banging in goals. Now we're talking about a different situation, right? But we just haven't seen that yet this year, by and large.
Very true. So with that, Ollie's first opportunity, let's jump into this match preview. Brighton home Monday, thank God, back at home Monday, 3 p.m. So far this season, Brighton is technically 10th, although they have played 1 fewer match than Aston Villa. So if they beat Brentford today, this could all go up. 25 points. New manager, Fabian Hertzler, who technically is an American, born in Texas, lived there for maybe a year. Yeah.
All right. Now, I learned something new today.
Yeah, there you go. Next USA manager, more Americans succeeding in the Premier League. And actually, maybe I shouldn't say succeeding, actually, because Brighton has been, despite having a decent team, obviously they're well regarded for their analytical system, their ability to punch above their weight with their spending and all that, whatever. They're winless in 5, and not necessarily against great teams. They've lost to Crystal Palace and Fulham are good. Lost to both of those 3-1, and then have draws to Southampton, Leicester, and West Ham. And they really only have 2 wins in their last 10. So much like Villa, they've kind of been falling down the table, whereas they were punching out more in that 5th, 6th spot a little bit earlier. And then in terms of approach, young Fabian, who I think is like 32, he has been compared to Jurgen Klopp, and at least according to James Milner, who's played for both of them, that is very accurate. So his system it's possession-based style with quick vertical attacks. So they want to get down the field and really attack those channels in between the center backs and the outside backs with incisive through balls, kind of possessing the ball back, fast, heavy metal football. And then defensively, you're looking at a high man-to-man press with a high line that's going to try and catch teams offsides. I think it kind of surprised some people earlier in the season, and maybe now some managers are catching on to it. But they're gonna attack in a way that I think Villa has been vulnerable to in recent weeks. The incisiveness, the balls in behind. They attack through the middle. Now we'll get into the lineup later, but this might be another Kamara Onana game. And then we'll just see if Villa can exploit that space behind them to ultimately create opportunities the other way. I do think that if we can play through their press is going to kind of be the key for us. If we can play through and get going quick, we've seen how good we can be when we attack vertically and attack fast. But if we can't, we also saw all the errors that the team was making against Newcastle's high press in the second half yesterday. So, Chris, how are you looking at Brighton, and what are you looking to exploit?
So I excuse me, I thought that you had a great breakdown there of exactly why they are a threat to Aston Villa in particular, because of the way they play. And they have a couple, or I was going to say a couple, but they have at least one very good player that we need to watch out for. And I know you're going to talk about him later. But in terms of how Aston Villa can counteract that, I do think this is a match where you're going to try and put your best midfield out there. So it could be another Kamara, Onana, Tielemans sort of deal where Tielemans plays as the 10, but also can move back into the midfield, because you're going to want to control that middle part of the pitch, and having your three best players there to defend that area is going to be, I think, a key. So I do think you're going to see that in terms of a tactical setup. I think the issue you're going to see with the back four is now with Cash going out, you're forced to make some sort of change on the right, which then potentially changes what you do in the middle as well. And I think there's just now a lot of question marks back there in terms of the ability to limit chances through that incisive attack that we assume we're going to see. And again, it's been, at least it feels like, I don't have the statistics to back it up, but it feels like this is the perfect sort of way for a team to attack Aston Villa. And it feels like we've been getting carved up this way for most of the season when teams have been beating us. So in terms of counteracting it, I think it's just telling the guys in the midfield and telling the guys at the back, like, there will be opportunities to break if you can make the right move, make the right pass, make the right turn, through the press. Because once we get past that, we could be free and clear, because of the way Brighton are setting up and trying to play. So I hope to see a lot more of execution that we saw like against Man City, where, I mean, everybody pretty much made the right pass or the right turn against the press through most of the game, and we broke down that press relatively easily. And we can't have the bad turnovers in the middle of the park. If we do, we're going to be facing the same situation that we faced against Newcastle. And it's going to be a long day for us, I think, if that's the case. But my big key would be you control the midfield on both sides of the ball, defensively and in attack. You're careful with the ball, and you're looking for the outlet that springs us, or you're looking for the turn. Again, I want to see Morgan Rogers just beating guys on the turn. He did pretty well, like we talked about against Newcastle, but he needs more help up top. So I do have some tactical changes I'm making to the lineup when we get to that part, and that'll kind of cover, I think, what I hope to accomplish, or what I hope Aston Villa accomplishes with the lineup I throw out.
Yeah, so this is going to explain why our lineups will be the way they are. And without spoiling either of ours, let's just say that I'm sure a lot of villains out there are expecting Ezri Konsa to move back to right back and Carlos to come into center back, right? That's what Unai has seemed to do. And I think we saw how much we got terrorized by Callum Hudson-Odoi a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
That Konsa can certainly play right back, but if you're talking about a pacey, tricky winger that the other team is going to funnel their whole attack through, it seems to be a risky proposition, to say the least. And that's exactly what we're playing against Brighton. So in terms of guys that I'm looking out for, a couple before I get to the most important one. So center back, Jan-Paul Van Heck, their right center back, seems to be their version of Pau Torres, Chris. So he has the most progressive passes. Most of his are of that medium 15 to 30, 35 yard distance, which to me says that they're kind of using him when they ultimately play around the back or through the back. He's the one that's ultimately going to break the line into the midfield or potentially bypass that into the forward line. So look for him to be the one to kind of generate out of the back. And then we've obviously got the Danny Welbeck Renaissance leading the team in goal contributions this year, 6 goals, 2 assists. They've got another 7 from João Pedro. But really, if we don't spend any time talking about Kaoru Mitoma, I think we're doing everybody a huge disservice. So couple trivia questions for you, Chris. Kaoru Mitoma this year has 86 progressive carries so far. Who on Brighton do you think is next? Or at the very least, if you're not familiar with the lineup, how many do you think the next best person has?
I can't. I think I might be closer with who it is. I'm going to guess Danny Welbeck, just because of the Danny Welbeck Renaissance that you previously mentioned. He was the player I thought of.
Good guess. Do you want to just throw a number out there?
52. I don't know.
João Pedro with 34.
Oh my God. He was my second guess, by the way. He was my second guess.
Kaoru Mitoma has 172 progressive passes received. So someone makes a progressive pass into the attacking. He's the one who ultimately takes that and does something with that. I won't even ask you who's next because you won't get who. But what do you even think the number is of the next closest
now
person?
I'm curious as to who it was, because I actually would have guessed João Pedro for this. All right, since it's 172 received, and now I want to go super low. I'll go 56.
You're pretty close. It's Yakuba Minto with 69.
Never would have had
I mean, this is...
That's incredible.
The amount that they are running through Kaoru Mitoma, and I mean, phenomenal player, like makes all the sense in the world. But you hear about like João Pedro getting linked with Arsenal, right? Coming out of this year. Evan Ferguson's going on loan to some teams. Like a couple years ago, Mitoma was the name on everybody's lips, and I think he had an injury-plagued season last year. Obviously didn't reach the same heights, but like this dude can ball. And the idea of him getting Ezri Konsa isolated alone in space, I'm so fearful of that. So,
I mean, the question there is, how do you counteract that given that Cash is out? Because the natural inclination would be to put Konsa out there.
So I've got 2 potential options. Okay. One is to put Costa out there just for the athleticism. I think Mitoma's pace, dribbling, that's something that kept in front of him. We've said Ned is actually pretty decent at. Where Ned struggles is when the ball is on the other side of the field, potentially losing his runner, not being in the right space on crosses, not following his runners. That's not something that we really need to worry about Mitoma, because Mitoma is going to be the one with the ball. It's all in front of him. I actually think that Costa could be decent in this space. And then we do the same thing where Kamara just has to shade over there. And so my lineup would be Costa, Konsa, Pau, Luka Dean, Onana, and Kamara, Yori in front of them, Rodgers on one side, and then I'm benching McGinn, and I'm putting Leon Bailey back out there with Ollie Watkins. Again, we talked about being able to attack the space in behind Brighton. I don't need McGinn kind of playing slow on that right-hand side. I want someone who's going to hit that channel vertically and be able to pop one either through or over the top from Yori. So I'm taking McGinn out and I'm putting Bailey in and hoping that he can attack that space. The other option would be to go 5 at the back. And so you double up on Matoma that way. Again, either McGinn or Ned could really play that right wing back position, I suppose.
Yeah.
But again, I would go with Ned, and then you would have Konsa, Mings, Powell, or Konsa Carlos. I actually don't remember if Mings is back yet or not. But 3 center backs.
Yeah.
Luka Dean or Ian Maatson on the left-hand side, I actually wouldn't really care at that point. Then you would have Onana and Kamara sitting, Yori in front of them, and then Rogers Watkins up top.
So I don't think there's any chance that Emery's going to go 5 at the back. I don't see that happening.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to do your first lineup either. I would like that one. That would be the lineup I'd go with. But I don't think he's going to do it. If he does, I'll eat crow and I'll admit that I was wrong. But I just don't see him trusting Costa to start there. I think it makes sense. So in the interest of telling you what now I think Emery's going to do, I think he's going to move Konsa out. It'll be Diego and Luka Dean, but I wouldn't also be surprised to see Ian Maatson there to give Dean a little spell.
Especially on 3 days rest. That's a good call.
That's what I mean.
And a little bit more pace.
I wrote down Kamara in the midfield, but I clearly mean Onana and Kamara. You can't see my lineup. I kept it secret. And then I would go Bailey, Tielemans, Rogers, Watkins. So some of the same positive changes that you talked about making. I could see Emery making those same changes, but I don't see him making Costa at the back. And I would go. It's more likely he'd go Costa than he would go back 5. I would ever
agree
think
with
he's going to go to a back 5 like that against this. I just don't see it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're spot on there.
Yeah.
So been through it all. What do you see as the score on Monday?
We're back at home, right? We've been playing well at home of late. I'm going to go 3-1 Aston Villa. Ollie gets back on it.
So I think Ollie can score a goal here. We're back at home against a team that's not playing well. What I say earlier, we play well against the teams that aren't doing well. We don't do great against the teams that are. Yep. It's pretty middle of the road Jekyll and Hyde for a mid-table team. Yep. And so I think that we will see ourselves be able to pull out a 2-1 victory. I
hope we're both right in one way or another, but let's hope. Hope.
Hope is all we got at this point. Well, enjoy your weekend, my man. Happy Hanukkah to you and your family, even though you do not celebrate. Hope your kids get some good gifts from your parents. And here's to a Villa victory on Monday, and look forward to chatting with you Monday evening.
We'll see you Monday evening. Up the Villa.
Hi, Mom and Dad.